What is the impact of body count on long-term relationship success?
I mean, it's very intuitive. I'm always surprised by how controversial this is because I say it quite a bit, and I say it not even kind of bracing for impact, if that makes sense. I'm like, this seems intuitive, right? But people who love to have casual sex and sleep with lots of people and hop from relationship to relationship, and as a result of all those behaviors, end up with a higher number for their age than you would otherwise expect, those people are less likely to succeed in long-term monogamous pair bonds than people who do not like doing that and do not have that sort of track record. And when I say succeed, I mean in terms of every outcome measure. I mean, more likely to get divorced, less likely to be satisfied in their relationships, more likely to cheat. There was one analysis, I believe it was by the IFS, where if an individual, and this is all true for men and women, by the way. I know that on the internet, there's a huge focus on women, but all these effects, there's no sex difference, and sometimes the effect is even larger in men than women. So that aside, right, we're talking about everybody here. If you subdivided the data neatly and said people with a body count below 5, people with a body count above 5, what's their infidelity rate? The infidelity rate of the above 5 group was double that of the below 5 group.
No way.
Yeah. So this is not a nothing burger, right? This is a thing. And the reason it's a thing is very intuitive, right? It's like, what is an affair, for example? Like, an affair is a form of casual sex. And so if someone has had lots of casual sex, they're telling you to some extent, oh, I'm more likely than someone who has not done this. I probably enjoy this, right? Because I keep doing it over and over. I mean, I'm sure there's some cases where that's not true and people change, obviously, but it's a huge, past behavior is a predictor of future behavior. So you're basically saying, oh, I've got, like, when people are surprised by this, I'm surprised. Because it's like you've got two groups of people, let's say, people who have slept with lots of people and people who haven't. And you're trying to predict who's going to sleep with more people in the future going forward. Like, why would you predict anything other than...
The only explanation that I could come up with is that somebody has closed the loops.
Oh, they've gotten it out of their system. Yeah, the classic... imagine if I said that with alcohol. Right? I'm going to get it out of my system. So I can drink less in the future, I'm going to drink more during my undergrad, right? Imagine if I said this with drug use.
Yep.
Imagine if I said it with positive things. Imagine if I said, I'm going to get the gym out of my system, right? That doesn't happen. That it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to work on my muscles. And then in the future, I am not going to want to do it as much because I used to do it. Like, you build healthy habits, you build unhealthy habits.
Do you think that there's ever the potential for somebody to stray because they had unfulfilled variation early on in their sexual career?
It's a really good point. And I think that what we're talking about here is average population level trends, which is the sort of thing this data is good for. I think that there probably is some causal relationship, but the data don't speak to that yet. And you actually can't ethically design the sort of experiment that would tell us.
Fucking ethics boards, dude. They suck so hard. So
many interesting questions that we could answer.
I think it's an interesting one around how people interpret sociosexuality. Buss had, in The Evolution of Desire, I swear one of the lines that's still in my readwise is, the single biggest predictor of extramarital sex is premarital sex.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, it's sex predicting sex, right?
But again, is that true? Is the single biggest predictor of extramarital sex premarital sex?
Single biggest predictor? It's David Buss saying it, so I'm very tempted to just...
Slightly older book, though, right? Like, has Evolution of Desire is what? How old now?
Yeah, that's true. It's like 1999, I believe. So, I mean, in my data... and looking at other people's data, I would say relationship dissatisfaction. Mm-hmm. But that is...
Could that be due to...
But think about that. Think about relationship satisfaction as like the dam lifting up and like all the other causes being allowed to run roughshod.
Relationship dissatisfaction is not one of the predictors that you could be able to...
say in advance.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, obviously, when things get bad, they get bad, right?
Yes,
it's predicting itself.
And maybe it's because they've got wandering eyes. Maybe it's because they're not paying as much attention to you.
Exactly. And then it's also, it's not a, like, it's kind of an all-cause thing, because as soon as you don't care about the relationship, any other motivator becomes much more pertinent. Like maybe you were the sort of guy who never had a wandering eye and couldn't be swayed.
Dissatisfaction has now meant that the first thing to the surface is now what burst out, and the most salient personality trait you have is your high sociosexuality, because you slept with 25 women before you got into this relationship.
I think that the best predictor of extramarital sex is premarital sex. Maybe that's true. I mean, I do know that if you look at people who do go the very religious route and they just have one person and that sort of thing, they do tend to have, and they don't live together before marriage, and they do all that stuff. Yeah, they seem to do pretty well. I do think though that this is correlational, and so there are going to be individuals who don't fit that pattern. And one thing that we cannot test, this is a huge caveat, is that we can't know, like, if you take that person who had a high body count, let's say, and cheated, we can't rewind the clock and say, oh, if you hadn't built that habit, you would have, like, maybe it would have been even worse. Like I can't recommend from this, like, I can't like, tentatively, I would say it's probably not a good idea if you want to marry for life. It's probably not a good idea to sow your wild oats. It's probably not a good idea to try and get it out of your system, with the caveat that it's hard to know from the data with great confidence that that there aren't individual cases where that actually is protected.
But also, I really wanted to get into this. The causal effect. Somebody's just lost their virginity yesterday, and they're going to get into a relationship, which is going to be their lifelong relationship in 8 years' time. They want to have sex with lots of people. They want to. They really, really want to.
And is me saying hold it back, is that going to make them less likely to cheat? Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. I think
does it change? Does it change? Does you sleeping around, because one of the questions would be, well, you know what it's like. You've developed some sort of habit, some sort of lifestyle. You've maybe gotten rid of some of the stigma that's a part of it. Inculcated some kind of fucking sexual rhythm with new partners, whatever it might be. You know what's out there. Yeah. Right? And
you actually know the mechanics. I mean, people who have never had a one-night stand, they actually don't know
the mechanics of a one-night stand.
Yeah, they don't know how that works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's such an interesting point. I think one-night stands are, apart from in modern media, often romanticized by people that have maybe only been in long-term relationships. Like the taxi home, the fucking cleaning up of the clothes in the morning. It's not the beginning of a Love Actually movie. It's not. It's just, it's steeped in awkwardness and stories that you tell your friends in WhatsApp chats the next day.
Yeah, I think there's some cases probably, I think there's some cases probably where people have that experience, don't like it, and it actually solidifies their commitment to monogamy.
Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
I think that when we're talking about, I made kind of a glib analogy to, I was feeling quite cheeky, made an analogy to alcohol, that kind of thing. And I think that to walk that back to some degree, I would say that it's probably true if we're talking about like very high cases, but there probably are some cases within normal range where, like, if you came to me and said, look, Mac, and I really, really want to drink and party and all that sort of stuff, like, would my advice really be going into undergrad, well, don't do it because you'll become an alcoholic later? Or would it be like, well, have a little bit of fun, try not to go too far, and then after check back in and maybe don't. Maybe you could make similar advice about like how to navigate sexuality if you are someone who's, sociosexually.
This is the problem with these sort of like big population level data, these big surveys. Yeah. We don't know what the underlying motivation is. Yeah. Right? There are lots of different ways. Robert Plomin, I always think about Robert Plomin when I think about this stuff. I always think about casual sex. I think about Robert Plomin. And he said to me that there's lots of ways to get fat. He's talking about behavioral genetics. He's saying there's lots of different ways to get fat. Some people have a higher ghrelin release. Some people have got a bigger stomach. Some people just don't like exercise. Some people have got a lower BMR. Lots of, and a million other ways that I haven't thought about. Okay. What that means is when you look at fat people, you are looking at many different routes up the top of the same mountain. When you look at high body count people, many different routes up that. Maybe it's because of social approval. Maybe it's because of a need for connection. Maybe it's because of a difficulty with commitment. Maybe it's because of high sociosexuality. Maybe it's because of a high sex drive. Maybe it's because whatever's going on. Maybe it's because of your job, right? You're a stripper. or whatever, like, or a fucking metal guitar player.
I think in that case the negative predictive outcomes might be maintained. But yeah,
But
I completely take your point.
and we don't know how people are getting up because we're just taking these big aggregate pieces of data.
I also think that another thing to keep in mind, the reason that body count means anything is likely because it's a proxy for sociosexuality. And so when we're looking at an aggregate, as you say, sure, there's some predictive benefit. But if we were to look at any individual case, you could assess it and say, like, okay, well, how predictive is this of sociosexuality? And we even see this in the recent research from, again, it's Thomas's team, and I believe Stuart Williams is on it as well, again, where they looked at this across nations, and they took a more fine-grained, nuanced approach than they did in 2019. And what they did was they looked at essentially the effects of recency, right? And it's like, if someone, the number can be the same, but if it's like all of them, and you can really think about this, like, what's a better cue to sociosexuality? If you're 38 and you meet a woman who's 34 and she's slept with 10 people, but they were all in undergrad, and since then it's been like one boyfriend, right? That's very different to meeting the same 34-year-old woman who's like, actually it's been 10, but they were all this past month, right? And you're number 11. Like, what's the cue, right, in terms of personality? And what they found was that people were sensitive to that. And I think they're sensitive to a lot of things. Like, I think that if you're talking about like a body count of 7 being quote unquote high, it's not really high for like a 35-year-old, right?
And it's certainly not a 35-year-old for someone who's only slept with one person in the last 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. But it actually is insanely high for like a 19-year-old, right? Like, that's a shock, right? So I think that for people listening to this, I would say that if you're trying to, I talk about this stuff first and foremost because I find it interesting. Not necessarily, like, it's kind of a second order effect.
Lifestyle.
If anything happens to be useful, that's wonderful, right? And we want to extract that as much as possible. But that's not my primary motivation for.
You're not here as a life coach, are you?
Yeah, like in terms of looking into it, it's. But I would say that if you were trying to glean something practical from this, I wouldn't take the kind of caveman, like, oh, high body count bad, low body count good approach, or a cave woman as well, because these preferences are apparently very similar. And these outcomes as well. I would say, okay, well, I've got this piece of information, but what's the context of that number? Like, is this a person, like, if you want long-term healthy monogamy, is this a person who has had 5 long-term relationships? Because that might even be like a green flag. If you're like 30 and they've had a few relationships, that sounds pretty good. If you're an undergrad and you met someone and the number is 5 and it's all one night stands,
let's add, that's such a good point. If you were to do a third iteration of Thomas's study and say, were these in a committed relationship that lasted for longer than 6 months, or were these one-offs? Well, the
completely different story.
Totally different. Yeah, that's so great. In other news, you've probably heard me talk about Element before, and that's because I am, frankly, dependent on it, and it's how I've started my day every single morning. This is the best tasting hydration drink on the market. You might think, why do I need to be more hydrated? Because proper hydration is not just about drinking enough water. It's having sufficient electrolytes to allow your body to use those fluids. Each grab-and-go stick pack is a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. It's got no sugar, coloring, artificial ingredients, or any other junk. This plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health, regulating your appetite, and curbing cravings. This orange flavor in a cold glass of water is a sweet, salty, orangey nectar, and you will genuinely feel a difference when you take it versus when you don't, which is why I keep going on about it. Best of all, there's a no questions asked refund policy with an unlimited duration. Buy it, use it all, and if you don't like it for any reason, they give you your money back and you don't even have to return the box. That's how confident they are that you'll love it. Plus, they offer free shipping in the US. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of Element's most popular flavors with your first purchase by going to the link in the description below, heading to drinklmnt.com/Modern Wisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/Modern Wisdom. Congratulations for making it to the end of a clip. Your brain has not been fried by TikTok. Watch the full episode here.